Try this right now. Close your eyes for a second. Try to remember your second birthday. The cake, the candles, the faces around you. Nothing. You probably can't pull up a single real memory. Not the room, not the people, not even what you wore. And here is the thing. It is not because your memory is bad. It is because that memory was never stored in the first place. The phenomenon has a name: infantile amnesia. Every human alive experiences it. The first 3 years of your life are gone, permanently. And the reason isn't trauma. It isn't repression. It is much weirder than that. By the end of this video, you will know exactly what your brain was doing instead of forming memories during the most important years of your life. You will also know why your earliest memory is probably fake, and why the version of you that lived through those years no longer exists. Let's start with what you do remember. Most adults can pull up some kind of memory from around age 3 or 4. Maybe a fragment, a birthday, a sibling being born, a specific room with a specific smell. But before that age, almost nothing. The drop is so sharp, researchers call it the amnesia cliff. Studies tracking thousands of adults show the average age of first memory is 3 years and 5 months. Before that, less than 5% of people have any genuine recollection. And the few who claim earlier memories, we'll come back to them. The question is, why? Babies clearly experience things. They feel pain. They recognize their mother's voice from inside the womb. They learn language at a speed your adult brain could never match. So where does all of that experience go? Why does your brain refuse to keep it? A 6-month-old baby can recognize hundreds of faces, distinguish their native language from foreign ones, track objects through space, learn cause and effect. Their brain is processing more information per second than yours is right now, building entire sensory and emotional maps of the world, and then deleting almost all of it. For 100 years, scientists assumed it was about repression. Sigmund Freud claimed early memories were too sexual or violent for the conscious mind to handle, so we buried them. Freud was wrong, almost completely wrong. The real answer came from a 2014 study by Sheena Jocelyn and Paul Frankland at the University of Toronto. They worked with mice, but what they found applies to every mammal, including you. Here is what they discovered. The part of your brain that forms long-term memories, the hippocampus, is still being built when you are a baby. And not just being built, it is making new neurons at a rate it will never match again in your entire life, faster than any other point. You would think that is good for memory. More neurons, more storage, more capacity. It is the opposite. Every new neuron that joins the hippocampus disrupts the existing connections. Imagine writing a sentence in wet cement. Now imagine someone keeps adding more wet cement on top, every minute, for 3 years straight. The sentence isn't erased, it is buried under so much new material that nothing stays in place long enough to harden. Jocelyn and Franklin proved this with a brutal experiment. They artificially slowed neurogenesis in baby mice, and those mice formed permanent memories of their infant experiences. Then they did the opposite. They boosted neurogenesis in adult mice, and those adult mice started losing memories they had successfully held for months. Forgetting wasn't a bug, it was a feature, and the more your brain was growing, the more aggressively it was erasing. But that is only half the story, because the other reason you can't remember being a baby is something even stranger. Memory needs language. Not just any language, a specific kind, the internal narrator, the voice in your head that tells the story of what is happening to you in real time. I just walked into the kitchen. I just saw my mom. I just dropped the cookie. Babies don't have that, not until around age 3 or 4. They have sensations, images, emotions, heat and cold and hunger and comfort, but no narrator stitching them together into a story. And without a narrator, experiences don't become memories. They become loose fragments, unindexed, floating somewhere your conscious mind can't reach. Patricia Bauer at Emory University proved this in a series of studies. She tested children from age 2 through 10. Kids who learned to talk earlier had earlier first memories. Kids whose parents narrated their day to them, "We just went to the park and you saw a dog and you laughed." Those kids had richer first memories. The clearer the language wiring, the more the brain could lock down experience as accessible memory. Before the narrator exists, there is no I doing things. There is just things happening to a body, sensation without a self. This is why no one remembers learning to walk. No one remembers their first words. The brain that did those things wasn't a brain that could yet think, I am doing this. And here is where it gets really uncomfortable. Because the small handful of memories you do have from before age 4, most of them are fake. Researchers have studied first memories for decades. The pattern is consistent. When adults describe a memory from before age 3, the memory almost always matches something else. A story they were told later, a photograph on the wall, a home video they watched as a teenager, a family dinner anecdote repeated dozens of times. Their brain took the story, combined it with imagination, and reconstructed it as a first-person memory, built entirely from outside information, filed under I remember. Elizabeth Loftus has shown this in experiments dozens of times. You can implant a fully detailed childhood memory in an adult's mind in under 20 minutes. The procedure is simple. You tell the subject a fake story about something that happened to them at age 4, getting lost in a mall, crying for help, being found by a kind stranger. A quarter of subjects come back the next week claiming they remember it, with details you never gave them, sounds, smells, what they were wearing, and they will believe that memory forever. So that earliest memory you are proud of, the one you tell people, the one that shaped you. Statistically, it is probably a story you were told. Your brain dressed it up in first-person clothes, added a few details to make it feel real, and handed it to you as truth. Now here is the part that should genuinely disturb you. Those first 3 years are when you learned to trust people, when you formed your attachment style, when you learned what facial expressions mean, when the foundation of your personality was laid down. Everything that matters most about who you are was built during the only period of your life you cannot consciously access. You are made of experiences you cannot remember having. This is why therapy is often blocked at this layer, why some patterns refuse to change no matter how hard you work, why you flinch at a tone of voice and don't know why certain people feel safe and others don't, instantly, before they say a word. Maybe you can't trust someone who is too kind to you. Some part of you waits for the other shoe to drop. That pattern was set before you had words. Maybe you panic when someone takes too long to text back. Maybe you become someone different around your father. Maybe you cry at music in a language you don't understand. The information is in there, but it lives in the body, not the narrator. In the way your shoulders tighten when someone raises their voice. In the way you pull your hand back before you know why. Psychologists call this implicit memory. Memory without conscious access. Knowledge without language. And it is real. It is running in the background of every relationship you have. Every reaction, every fear, every attraction. Here is the good news. The brain that built those patterns is also still plastic. You can override implicit memory through new experience. Slowly, repetitively, through felt safety, not through understanding. This is why insight alone rarely fixes early life patterns. You can't reason with memory you can't access. You can only outgrow it. But the bigger question is, why did evolution build us this way? Why design a creature whose foundation is invisible to itself? Because forgetting was the priority, not remembering. A baby brain that retained every sensory detail of its first 3 years would be paralyzed, drowning in data, unable to filter, unable to function. The cost of building general intelligence is forgetting the building process. You traded clear access to your formation for the ability to function as an adult. That is the trade every human makes. Forget who you were so you can become who you are. So the next time you try to remember being 2 years old and find nothing, here is what is actually happening. The hippocampus that would have stored that memory was being rebuilt every minute. The narrator that would have made it a story didn't exist yet. And the memory you do have is probably a photograph someone else took. You weren't there, at least not in the way you think you were. And the version of you that lived through those years, that person doesn't exist anymore. Their experiences shaped you. Their attachment style is yours. Their fears are yours. Their language is yours. But they didn't survive into your conscious life. You inherited everything from them and remember nothing about them. Mindwire. Hidden mechanics decoded.